Hello and welcome to Home Media Minefield presents Let's See What's Out There Plus, a supplemental video stream and podcast currently focused on Marvel's Moon Knight series, which is available for streaming on Disney Plus. In today's episode, we're going to have a spoiler-filled conversation around episode 2, Summon the Suit. My name is Keith Isles. I am an independent filmmaker and lifelong enthusiast of films and television. And if this is your first time joining us today, welcome. Please, if you find this sort of thing interesting, consider giving us a like and subscribing to the channel and checking out some of the other work that we have there. And if you hit the bell notification, you will get informed as and when new varied content on film and television properties drop on the channel. So with that out of the way, I'm really pleased to introduce my panel for this. First off, joining us from the other side of the pond is my co-host on the Star Trek strand of this podcast and a comic enthusiast. Please welcome Pete Mealy and Barbara Mealy. Hey, both. How you doing? Oh, let me readjust.
There we go.
How are you?
Good. How are you, Keith?
Very well, very well. I hope you don't mind me introducing you as a comic book enthusiast. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Great, Barbara. And obviously, yes, Pete will be
He's also here.
Yeah, to talk Star Trek on another stream. Yes. And also back again to talk about Moonlight, I have screenwriter and comic book aficionado, Mr. G. Knight, or Graham Williams, as we call him. Hey, how you doing, Graham?
Good day, good night. How are you?
Good night. Yes, we're very well. How are you doing?
Excellent. Yes, just relaxing in sunny North Wales at the time. So had a few days off away from work and away from London. So yeah, relaxed and looking forward to this one.
So there you go. We're all in different countries then, if you want to look at it that way, aren't we?
Indeedy.
So that's great. Okay, well, let's kick in straight into it, shall we? And Pete, you're gonna, as usual, give us a really amusing and brief synopsis of episode 2, Summon the Suit.
Yeah. Okay. Stephen Grant goes to work expecting to find video proof of the jackal that attacked him, but the video just shows him, not even him in the suit. So he gets fired for trashing a bathroom and offered mental health services. He goes to find the storage locker that he found the key for in his apartment, and with a lot of legwork, he finds it. It's a real mercenary's dream, down to the bag of money, guns, and the golden scarab. The Mark in the mirror shows up and tells Stephen to stop and let Mark deal with it. Stephen says no, and then gets chased outside by Khonshu, right into the waiting moped of Layla. Layla takes Stephen back to his apartment, where it gets awkward. They are technically married, but Mark asked for a divorce, and so Layla expects him to sign the papers. Stephen asks Layla to hold on to the scarab over Mark's protests. Reminder, Mark and Stephen are the same person. But then the police show up and take Stephen into custody and deliver him right to the glass shoes guy, who shows Stephen his idyllic community, and explains that he used to be the Fist of Khonshu, but he now serves Ahmed, and they need the scarab to find her tomb and release her. And then Layla shows up with the scarab, and all hell breaks loose. But Stephen can't let Mark take control. So when another jackal shows up, Stephen summons his own Moon Knight outfit, a dapper suit, and does his best to fight. But finally lets Mark take over with the more Egyptian-style suit. And Mark kicks the jackal's butt and accidentally drops the scarab, which Glass Shoes picks up. Stephen and Mark have an argument about who gets to be in control of the body. Mark wins, and then Mark and Khonshu have an argument about what their deal is. And then both Stephen and Mark are in Egypt, and the credits roll, introducing me to the world of hip-hop and Arabic, and my life has been forever changed.
Excellent. To be continued. Okay, just a real brief look at the production credits for this episode. So this was directed by the directing duo of Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. They are best known for their work on films such as The Endless and Resolution. More recently, on the TV streaming side of things, they were involved with a couple of episodes of the show Archive 81, which was shown on Netflix. And unfortunately, apparently is not getting a second season, which I was quite disappointed to hear, particularly as that one ends in a cliffhanger. But there you go. That's a whole nother stream. And this was written by Michael Castleline. I knew I'd pronounce that incorrectly. Michael's previous work has been within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or the streaming shows for such. He has written several episodes of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and has also worked on the episode on the series Truth Be Told, of which he's on the writing staff. So yeah, and if you're interested in what our thoughts on Falcon and the Winter Soldier were, check out the pods of that on this channel. All right, that's enough of that stuff. Let's get into our thoughts. So I'll let you guys kick it off. How do we feel about this episode?
Well, I loved it. I will start
Okay.
and say that I cannot get enough of what's going on in here. From the the dynamic between Mark and Steven, the fighting styles of both of them, and like how that was visually represented. The Layla Steven, Layla Mark relationship, I think, is being played really well, and the avatar of Ahmed, the Ethan Hawke character, and his whole community, like they're just hitting all the right notes for me.
Cool. And Barbara, are you in agreement with Pete on this, or are there many domestic disputes about this sort of thing going on?
No, it hasn't turned into a dispute yet, but if I hear the closing credits song maybe 5 more times, there will be a dispute.
Yeah.
We've been listening to it since Wednesday nonstop.
Yeah. I am a new subscriber to the Spotify playlist Arab Hip Hop, and it's like it's nonstop.
It is a really good song.
It's a great song.
Yeah.
It is El Malouk by Ahmed Saad, the number 3 Enba. I don't know how to say that name. Thremba and Double Zuksh.
There you go. I'm glad I saved the easy credits for you.
Yeah. I'm sure I've mispronounced all of those names. And I have no idea what the lyrics to that song actually are, except for alone phone and man, I think they say at different times. And I might be wrong on those too, but I've sent it to my cousin who speaks Arabic fluently, and I've asked her to translate.
Well, if it plays any more, you and Barbara will be able to sing it in the next episode, right?
Well, I can sing very like small parts of it very, very well. Like Malouk, 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 Malouk is one of my and Habibi, Baba. It's great. Right there.
Fantastic. Who knew this was going to be such an entertaining stream?
Yeah.
So Barbara, I mean, I believe when we spoke last time, you were somewhat aware of the comic origins of this character, right?
Yeah. So I can't not be a super nerd and do my homework. So I've been reading through the original comics as well as a current printing. And I think Graham said this last time, that Moon Knight kind of just shows up. He wasn't his own character. He didn't have his own book until he'd made a few appearances in other things. And those comics came out in the late 70s. so everybody like talks like a thug, and they don't say that he's like mentally has a mental health issue. He like sort of like Bruce Wayne Batman, except he has like a rich playboy persona, and then he has a cab driver persona that he uses to gather information. So, and then I thought it was interesting because in the current print of comics, they also don't really, I mean, he does see a super therapist, which we mentioned last time, but they don't bring up the dissociative identity disorder very much. So I think the show is like addressing that a lot more than so far, like what I've seen in the comic.
Sure, yeah, being a bit more progressive, perhaps, with that than the 70s comics may have been, back then. But one thing occurred to me actually while I was watching this, this is actually the first for the streaming services, for the what we've had on TV basically from Marvel. This is the first one which is kind of introducing a new character, because when you think about it, the other ones, whether it was WandaVision or Falcon and Winter Soldier or Loki, these are all characters that were already established from the MCU films. So it's quite cool that we're actually being introduced to a new character through a show for the first time, and certainly for me that's not familiar with the backstory. But Graham, how are you, on that note, how are you feeling, again, as someone who knows the comics, how are you feeling with the way they're kind of unraveling this origin story for this character?
I'm feeling great. I'm with Pete on this one, a bit with Barbara too. I'm loving it. This guy's may become one of the shortest live casts that we've done together, or it would just be us gushing, because I watched it again yesterday for the second time, and every minute was an absolute pleasure. I laughed a lot more, as I'm really getting the humor. Even the security guard, Stephen Grant humor. Stephen Grant is fast becoming one of my favorite Marvel or MCU at least characters, and it's just this episode really expanded whilst also explained some questions we guys had at the on the last cast here as well. So I'm really enjoying it. If it carries on with this consistency, and it's only 6 episodes too, I think we're in for a classic here. Yeah. And we are. You're right. We're being introduced to a brand new character to the MCU. We've got no other characters so far. My little mind is ticking over. How are they going to have some cross reference there? Because all the others have or movies and TV series. So I'm really excited now for next Wednesday and onwards too. Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have to agree, for someone that, as I said, is unfamiliar with this character completely. I kind of like the way the series is drip feeding us the answers, and it's kind of almost like its own mystery. And we feel as if almost we're with the Stephen character, because he's completely unaware of what's going on, and we're learning as he learns. So I like that aspect. The other thing I think is a very different take to everything we've had before with superheroes is the fact that the dual identity in the case of this is almost like a tri-identity, or maybe more. And the fact that because he's unaware, he's somewhat of an accidental hero as well in this sort of narrative that we've got, does lead for very amusing situations, for one thing. But it's kind of a very, very different take on the thing we're used to seeing. And like you said, from like you were saying, Barbara, from the history, it sounds like the previous characters were much more of the archetype that we're used to, whether it's the playboy billionaire or what, the action hero type thing. Whereas, the portrayal of Stephen is a nervous, bumbling buffoon type of character is very different, and I'm kind of enjoying that as a change from the trope, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the way the Mark Spector in the comics is written, it's just like, ugh, he's so obnoxious. It's like the playboy, he's got like a woman that just waits around for him, and then the cars and all the money, and right, it's just like, yeah, let's get back to the finding the information out. But a concept that I think doesn't get told very much in media that explores multiple personality disorder is like, essentially, right, he has two personalities, and one of them made a deal with a deity without the other one like knowing or having consent. And so poor Steven like has to cope or deal with, right, the aftershock, which is now like going to take him on this whole crazy adventure.
And we hope, like we talked last, we hope Stephen comes along, because we've got Mark in control now with Stephen on Privy. I genuinely hope that Stephen does try to fight back or stays with us. Yeah, because there's a dynamic there. Even if another guise or another personality does come too, because from the comics there is at least one more. But yeah, the fight of Stephen, I think, is far more interesting as well, because he is not archetypal at all. He is accidental, yes, and he is kind of bumbling, but but he's doing his best. He's not fully, at least some thought to him, even if it's panicked thought. I don't know. I've never been chased by a ghost howling, jackal of Egypt, created from some purple light by a long-haired cult leader. So I don't know. I can't feel that, but at least I'm rooting for him.
I particularly enjoyed the scene, because as I said, I feel like we're getting, as an audience, this very much from the perspective of the Stephen character, and I did enjoy the scene with Arthur Harrow, played by Ethan Hawke, where he's kind of explaining what's happening to him and explaining the backstory, and the bit when he has that sort of ramble about child murders is not a good thing, right? I just kind of thought that was very amusing.
I think Steven's a really good leavening agent or presence, right, in this world that's like, it's so, right, like Egyptian culture is so old and mysterious, right? And like the gods are presenting it as this really big, epic, like violent struggle between them, which I'm starting to think of the gods a little bit like siblings that are just squabbling with each other, and the mortals are getting caught up in it. So the fact that a mere mortal, Stephen Grant, is trying to have ethical debates with another avatar, right? I think it's really interesting.
Over vegan soup, don't forget. Which presents another level to us.
Lentil soup, lentil.
That's it,
which he actually said was very good, by the way.
Exactly,
I like the way that was thrown in.
And a moment of comedy, which I totally appreciate, especially if I can't hear properly, is the summon the soup. It caught me unawares. Yes, I watched it the first time and I laughed, and yes, I must have forgotten in the days. And then again last night, and I was in a space, a living room and a dining room, and there were people here talking in the house, and I burst out laughing. I had to pause because it was just one of those guffaws. So I want a T-shirt, summon the soup.
We should get that.
Yeah,
that sounds great. I think he will. I think Stephen is going to
sell it. Sorry.
No. I think Stephen is going to be part of the story going forward, because he's in the mirror in the last shot. Right, is like Stephen is in the mirror on the bed, sort of watching Mark in horror as Mark is on the tail end of a bender, finishing a bottle of Jack in his underwear. And
I do wonder whether we might see some of the other characters as well that of the personalities, simply because I know it's done for a joke. I get it's done for dramatic effect and whatever, but the security guard twice now has referred to him as Scotty, right? Which is quite funny because he goes, no, it's Stephen, which is a great bit of, comedy, obviously. But it does make me wonder whether there is another alter ego, which is this Scotty character maybe that's been interacting with the security guy without Stephen realizing that had happened. I don't know. I might be this is just maybe me reading into it, but I did wonder that. Something we need to talk about, though, because what was different with this episode to the previous episode is we get the introduction of Layla. Now, I don't know. Is this a character that has an analog in the comic books, or is this a new
right
character?
from the beginning? Yeah. So Barbara, now you've read the originals from the werewolf one. Layla, you mentioned the woman, basically the secretary, the PA, the girlfriend, the whatever she is, trophy wife type
Who can also
character.
fight if she has to.
She does what?
She can also fight. Like, she gets into some scuffles because she won't stay home.
She's not a useless blonde character. She's blonde, by the way. Yeah, no, she is useful by cooking, of course. But so Layla is from the beginning, like Duchamp we saw on the phone last week.
Right.
They are from the originals there, and it was a surprise to me because I was expecting the same, a long haired blonde lady, and then this Layla turns up, but actually she's a bit more kick-ass, and then the whole married divorce thing, it really surprised me. But then again, that might be a part of the later comics, right? But it was a good surprise because where I was thinking myself clever because I know what the original comics were, I was thinking, okay, I know what's coming. No, I don't know what's coming because they've introduced a different type of Layla, a stronger Layla as well. So I was pleased that my assumptions could be, pushed to one side.
Yeah. Well, she certainly had plenty to do in this episode, and was far from being the sort of passive girlfriend character. So
Are we getting a moped again in Disney? We had it in Book of Boba Fett, and now we've got a proper use of moped.
Well, motorcycles are too, they're too dangerous. You got to keep it kid friendly.
Are you talking to Pete through us right now? We've got Egyptian hip hop, and now we've got maybe a bike thing going on.
No, Egyptian hip hop is me. The bicycles are definitely Barbara talking to herself.
Okay.
That she can't have a motorcycle just yet.
Fair enough.
Should we delve into this, Keith?
Yeah. Well, maybe offline.
Fine.
Internet is for the world, right?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the other things. I mean, one of the things. This is a mild nitpick, and I even have my my headcanon explanation for it all. But one of the things I find quite distracting, and I don't know whether you do, Graham, but all of the time the stuff set in London, I'm well aware that this wasn't shot in London, and I'm always trying to sort of work out the geography and the places.
Yeah.
But as I said, for things that maybe aren't there, I just think to myself, well, this is in an alternate reality anyway, and slightly in the future, and all of that sort of stuff. So that's my headcanon. But it was good to see them. We see Tower Bridge, which is obviously fixed after Spider-Man Far From Home, right, where it got pretty much trashed.
Or this is before that. Yeah.
Oh, this is before that. Yeah, there you go. That's interesting. Yeah. In fact, if anything, again, what we were saying earlier about this being the introduction of a new character to the MCU, that's a really good point, because this doesn't really, as of yet, connect with anything else. That's a really good point. I mean, who's to say that it's in the Marvel present day, which is actually now 4 years in the
23,
future or
is it? Or
whatever.
is it
But
23?
yeah, but that's a good point. This could be any time, right? And it could even be another multiverse, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, no, and I think that's helping us being more local than the Mealies, of course, to London. Definitely. No, it's good to see Trafalgar Square, and I was like, okay, yeah, I only work 2 minutes from there, so that's correct. Well done, Marvel. But then the rest was like, okay, yeah, I've got to disassociate. But then there's a rooftop. Chase, and we see the Tower of London as well. So that was it's always cool to see more of your own locality, as it were.
Yeah.
But I'm having to kind of switch my brain to say, just because they're running towards St. Paul doesn't mean that they're running there. No,
Yeah.
it's going to be different, right? So it always has to be. So that's a nitpick, but it's us having to deal with it, Mr. Isles, I think.
Oh yeah, no, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. No, I'm
I
fine
always
with it anyway.
kind of get a kick out of like in movies or TV shows where they say like it's set in New York, and then they pass something. You're like, that's not our train station.
Yeah,
It's funny like that they. I mean, obviously it's because of wherever they can get shooting rights and blah blah blah. But
yeah.
So you guys should just pat yourselves on the back that you're calling them out on their nonsense.
Because
now, to be fair, the show looks great visually, as with all Marvel stuff. To be honest, the visual effects work in this is superb. I particularly like the bit when they were fighting with the creature, but we couldn't see it, and so there was that kind of invisible fighting
also
going
very
on.
humorous.
And yeah, it was humorous, but it was also well done. I've got to ask. I mean, obviously, I did kind of like the joke with the when he thought white suit. It brings what the hosts at that time perception of that is, and they could kind of say he's like a Colonel Sanders look or whatever with the white three-piece. Is that actually from the comic books or it is it? Okay.
That's all the new, yeah. I think you guys, you've read the more newer stuff, haven't you? The Mr. Knight consultant. Yeah.
That's in like the current run. That is the suit he wears all the time. He apparently is not taking it off, not ever being Stephen Grant. He is fully consumed in the personality of Mr. Knight, and it's a three-piece suit like that. Yeah. It was fun to see it.
Now I have to order Peter for Christmas. So.
Yeah, because I will 100% wear that.
I've kind of been specking out too, because I think I can actually make that up as a cosplay.
Yeah,
maybe not the mask. The mask's going to be a bit tougher because I don't have sewing skills, not very well. And I don't know. I'd have to watch it when I'm sewing it on my face. Well, I don't actually. Yeah, it'd be really tough to do that.
Yeah. You gotta make room for the beard. It's going to change that jawline a little bit.
Yeah, puff it out a bit, right? But Keith, I do want to, because we're on the Mr. Knight element. Is that another laugh I got, because when Stephen Grant's falling, he changes into Mr. Knight. He absolutely nails the landing. He's Mr. Superhero landing, one, and then falls over. Brilliant, absolutely meta. Loved it. That's one for repeating. Just go back 10 seconds and watch again. I absolutely adored that.
Yeah.
And then obviously everything afterwards, that was him all of a sudden a superhero and still being naff.
Yeah.
Still doing his best.
We just need Florence Pugh going, such a poser.
I loved it when he grabbed onto the car bumper to try to help himself up, but then ripped it off, and he just looks at it for a second. What am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah, we're all thinking weapon. He's
yeah.
Oh, no.
I was trying to get up. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. So, all hail that, and if that kind of humor. I know we're going into more Mark Spector's head now for a bit, so I'm not sure how much of the humor will be there, and whether it is, Stephen really is the is the comic relief. I hope not, but yeah, we'll see, because we may now start to really deal with the DID and Mark being quite broken up. Maybe more the Bruce Wayne Batman type role, the more brooding type fella now. So it'll be a different dynamic, but I hope they don't lose the humor as we go on.
Yeah. No, it was weird because when he found the place where he kept all the gear, the lockup where he kept all the gear, I was having kind of echoes of the Bourne Identity in some respects, just because again he's unaware of this part of his life and trying to piece it all together. So I kind of appreciated that as well. But yeah, I mean, Ethan Hawke, do we want to talk about him? Because I thought the scene with him and Oscar Isaacs was really good, where he's sort of explaining what's going on and giving him, if you like, the backstory, and giving us, the audience, or certainly me, who's not familiar with it, the backstory as well. And I thought that was a great scene. I thought Ethan really was great in that. I don't know whether you guys, I know he kind of creeped you out a bit last week, Barbara, right?
Yeah, I do think his acting is still really strong. It fits the role really well, and it was good to see him in this very like rational, amiable, like, oh, I'm just trying to help you out. So I thought he was great as playing Harrow.
And the whole, I liked what was, again, I know they sort of turned it into a joke that we touched on, but the whole morality issue around the scales, and the fact that somebody who's completely innocent will be judged on something that they may do, potentially, and all of that. I like the fact that that's brought into it, but apparently that is all absolutely linked to the mythology around the is it crocodile?
No, Amit.
Yes,
yeah.
Is it crocodile with that? Is it crocodile or alligator?
Yeah.
Crocodile.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So no, it's still I don't know about you guys, but it not just Ethan Hawke, but the whole cult and everything around it is still really creepy to me. The two coppers turning up at the flat, and then the male, but the man bashing in. Now I know you couldn't do that, but Stephen Grant does need a bit more innocent there. But that was really creepy. Even there's a child with a football playing in the street who's creepy as well. It's all these things that you've got this benevolent, or on the outside anyway. It's this benevolent group, which is actually quite a sinister cult, and that's really unnerving me, which is a good thing, because then we know who the baddies are, but the morality play, the two of them, the Harrow and Stephen Grant, then sparring, but over vegan soup and gently, is still there's a sinister undertone, which I'm really appreciating. But one thing about you, I'm not sure if you noticed, again, another one on the sinister aspect. Great, but really subtle sound design, right? And it must be just sound design. But when Ethan Hawke's character Harrow is walking, you can just about hear the crunch of glass. And when he gets when the football comes to his foot and he kicks it, there's a little tinkle of glass, and I was like, wow. Yeah. And I just added that layer, just underneath your skin, that little layer of sinisterism, that I was like, oh, okay, because he's still walking around there, and he's, loving this guy's tomatoes and shouting up to some cannon fodder.
There's the goat.
Yeah.
You make me laugh.
In London, in the streets of London.
Like you do.
Yeah, like you do, absolutely. Yeah. No, I have a sheep, not a goat. But but that, I don't know if you guys have picked up on that, or whether you're feeling as not uncomfortable, but I'm getting that sinister feel from it. I'm not sure if you guys too.
Oh yeah, I thought that the turn that they had him take from just like being chummy and buddy about like, oh well, I used to be the fist of Khonshu, right? Can you still hear his voice, right? And then as he's like sort of lovingly saying like, well, now I serve a better god, now I serve Amit, right? And then the turn he takes when Oscar Isaac says the thing about like, well, would you kill a kid? Like the turn is quite sudden, but very like understated and well done. Where he's like, "Oh, I'm glad you asked me that. Sometimes, the medicine is a taste of the disease." And you're like, "Whoa,
Like, what?
whoa,
Yeah.
whoa! This took a turn."
Yeah. Yeah, and Ethan Hawke's I agree with Barbara. Yeah, absolutely playing it wonderfully well. He could easily be hamming it up, really
Yeah.
easily could do. But this is a sinister guy, and I think if it's through Ethan Hawke's decision making rather than just or in collaboration with the directors, here's how I'm going to play it. I think he's doing it absolutely brilliantly.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
enjoying it.
I've
Yeah.
actually been having a little bit of a different experience with so like, when somebody like Graham, you explaining the sinister undertone, I'm like, yeah, that's totally there. But I get so wrapped up in the story that like when they're first walking through the community, right? And Harrow is like, but look, like nobody's hungry, nobody wants for anything. I'm like, yeah, why is this such a bad thing the way that they're living, right? And then it's like, oh, but we would kill kids. It's like, oh no. Nope, I was almost ready to drink the Kool-Aid. No.
You were looking online for ordering organic tomatoes,
Barbara's like,
getting
I've
a
always
goat.
wanted to learn a third language.
We looked at getting goats for the backyard. Like,
Yeah. Well, listen, the whole third language is fine. Pete will have his Arabic for his hip hop, right? Yeah. I've got two already. I've got Welsh and English, so a third one is not too bad. But
Yeah.
not to kill children. No, there's a line to be
that's
drawn,
the
isn't there?
line.
The line must be drawn there.
Yeah.
indeed.
Well,
Um,
depends on the kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
I noticed as well when the detectives turned up, I did sort of think, something's up here, because I don't know whether you picked up on it, but they were detectives Fitzgerald and Kennedy. Did you guys pick up on that when they introduced themselves? Oh, right. As in JFK. Did you pick up on that? Or was it just me?
No, I didn't pick up on that.
Oh, right. Okay. I mean, everything's done for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
Fake name,
Okay. We'll note that for next time.
That one obviously only landed with me. Oh well.
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, when Inspector John shows up, then we're gonna know you're right. Or
we get a John character coming in, most definitely. But no, it's now that we've got the future too, and Layla, where's she going to be now? Because she, at the end there, he's in Egypt now, is Mark, but Layla, they're not divorced. She has been on these adventures. Is she going to go off and get not recruits, but is she going to bring somebody else in, or are we just not going to see her for a while? I don't know. It's just where's she going to? Because she was, I agree. She's such a strong character, and there's such a history that only just mentioned to us. I'm wondering if we're going to go there, or we're going to start having more flashbacks of Mark's history too, because we could easily just see him flashing back, and we get a backstory that way. Because obviously, him and Khonshu are now racing against the clock and trying to head Harrow off at the pass, as it were, because he's got the compass. So we're getting into more Indiana Jones territory now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Somebody's got a tool that will get them to a tomb quicker. But I hope there'll be more Layla. You've introduced this character, you've established more of her.
And you guys might have picked up on this better than me, because I've only watched it the once, and I'm not sure if I understood this correctly. But Khonshu, who it's still a little bit sort of ambiguous as to whether what Khonshu is actually doing is for the greater good or not. I mean, obviously, what Arthur Harrow's doing is definitely not for the greater good. But am I right? Does Khonshu want Layla as the next
Yeah.
Host?
Yes,
Did
yeah.
I pick up correctly on that?
Candidate for a new host, yeah.
Right. Okay.
So obviously he's not the best of gods either, because he's a bit sinister, because he's obviously using the guilt trip on Mark, and he kind of blackmailing, emotional blackmail, really, saying Mark has to do this job, and then you leave him alone, but then he's lining up Layla, so that's that's really manipulative of him. I'm talking as if I know gods really well, right? Egyptian, Greek,
Well, I
or
think
otherwise.
that's the application of our contemporary, standards to ancient Egyptian gods. Like, ancient Egypt was a rough place. So by, if you try to put it in that time frame, he needs an avatar. He's just trying to do what he can to keep an avatar, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the fact that Harrow knows what he's about, it took the sting or the mystery out of Khonshu. You get back to that major scene with the soup. He's Harrow is actually can't hear Khonshu, but actually is saying, "Oh, he must be saying this now."
Oh, he's talking to me right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought, oh, that's a nice twist, because that really brings Khonshu down a few levels, and makes him less. He's still a deity, but it's more human and the like there. So, yeah, but you asked there, Keith. But Khonshu, what is he? He's the god of vengeance and justice. So he is. So that's where his avatars are, which kind of goes back to Batman, doesn't it? Batman is about vengeance and justice, etc. So, another steal there from the Marvel from DC, but obviously they've kind of expanded it a bit, of course, with having it as a deity to this group of avatars. Yeah, maybe the same body, but they are totally different characters.
Yeah, because I'm finding, from a viewer's perspective, for somebody, as I said, that's kind of new to this and viewing it through the character of Stephen, I'm still not really sure that Khonshu and Moon Knight are necessarily superheroes in the classic way that we think of it. They seem a little bit more in the ambiguous bracket for me at the moment, and I'm sure that the series is trying to set it up that way, but I don't know, as I said, not really being familiar with the source material, I don't know whether that's something that translates into the page as well, or it's just the adaptation that they're doing for this show. Don't know whether you have thoughts on that.
I actually think the comics are a little bit confusing, because the current run, right? Mark Spector is actually running a mission for in the community to help people. So it's like, if you have a problem, you let Mr. Knight know, and he goes and punches until it's fixed, right?
Yeah.
But it's sort of like
the A-Team.
Yeah. So where did he pick up this moral conscience? In his Spector's backstory is that he was in some branch of military. He was a Marine. Yeah. Is that right, Graham?
It could be. Yeah, I'll have to dig through my memory on that one.
I thought he was in the army, but then he dropped out and became just a mercenary.
They keep listing he was in 5 Spanish wars. He was in 3 African wars, right?
It's more the mercenary I remember, but then you can't count on my memory. It can be quite patchy. But yeah, definitely military there. If it's Marines, I haven't got my book with me this time round. But yeah, you get the gist that he's got the weapons because he was trained to, not because he's some guy in the mountains who thinks Armageddon's coming and just wants to suit up and the like. So there is that. And the angle, of course, where what he's done is actually traumatic to him, the DID, and then this deity finds a way into his psyche. That's a lot more broken than any of them, Keith. Back to your question, because Captain America was always the good guy, big heart. super serum made him a super soldier, but he kept his heart. Whereas this is a lot more ambiguous, a lot more grey. Is the Moon Knight personas most definitely, and you have to have a Daisy. Whether he's a superhero or not, I guess if he does heroic things by using superpowers, by that logic, yes, but that logic could be skewed, right? I don't know what the other guys
I
think.
think the MCU's been doing a good job of introducing characters that they're not, black or white. It's not a binary, right? It's not they're a superhero or they're a villain. Like Wanda, right, did some really reprehensible things. She took away people's free will, basically.
Yeah. Which is still hopefully going to be addressed in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, hopefully. But we'll see.
It looks like it's going to turn into like, you should really be punished for what you did, but we really need you right now, so we're gonna skip the punishment part.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Well, what's your thoughts then, Keith? Back to you. Back the question back to you. But is he a superhero or not?
Yeah, well, as I said, I've not really. I'm kind of just trying to go with it rather than when I start trying to imagine, as Pete will attest to when we talk about Star Trek. But when you try and imagine, what you do with it and where you take it, and it doesn't live up to that necessarily, it can be frustrating. So with me, with this one, I'm very much foot off the gas, just sitting back and enjoying it. And I have to say, as you know, last week I was somewhat on the fence about it at that point, where I wasn't loving it, and I could see sort of potential in it, but there were a few things that were irritating me, and there was sort of more questions than answers and all of this sort of thing. But this week I embraced the fact that this is a story being told over 6 parts. They do seem to be quite long in the case of these. They are around the sort of 50-minute mark, which is a decent chunk of storytelling time, and they're kind of drip feeding it. And now, again, I said I found Oscar Isaac a little bit jarring in the first episode, but I'm kind of comfortable with that now and on board with it. And I actually do think he's doing a fantastic job, because it is incredibly entertaining to be sharing this journey with Stephen. So I do hope that Stephen doesn't stay locked in the mirror for too long, as it were. But yeah, I'm kind of I'm happily going along with it, and I'm glad I didn't give up after the first episode, because I was feeling a little bit lost, I guess, with it, and then turned around and thought to myself, Keith, this is the point. You're supposed to go on this journey. It's like we've just had the first act of the movie, basically. So
yeah,
allow the other 2/3 to come through.
But
That's my long-winded answer.
I'm seeing for some reason, maybe because I'm off work and I was on holiday for a little bit since last Wednesday, that I've been into social media more. So there's a life lesson there. Don't, because I've been seeing a bit of a few gripes from Moon Knight comic book fans about the adaptation. And for me, as soon as you adapt, there's going to be a change, and you accept or not. But what I've read is that some aren't pleased with the depiction of Mr. Knight, but I'm not hearing others saying about classic Moon Knight or the beginnings, the 1970s version of Moon Knight. So maybe because that was so disjointed that all those fans aren't so vocal. But I was disagreeing verbally to my phone, which obviously means nothing, does it? But I wasn't jumping on social media to say I disagree, I'm loving it. But what it made me think of was that, because I'd read a little bit of Guardians of the Galaxy, but really couldn't get into it with about 3 different versions of the comics, and I was seeing the Guardians of the Galaxy first movie, loved it. It was the first movie of the Marvels I bought on home media rather than streaming. I love James Gunn's approach, humor, the drama, the lot, and I'm getting the same here, where I've read some of this comic and it wasn't so familiar, and I didn't love the 1970s version of Moon Knight. If I mentioned that last week again, because it was a bit disjointed. He was a bit of an also ran, but then reading what some of these guys, these fans, and everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I kept on disagreeing because it's an adaptation and it's MCU, and MCU for me has done such a great job of bringing characters from the page to a screen, melding them together, making them entertaining, also making them really dramatic.
Mhm.
Keith, you said, watching Endgame, for instance,
Yeah.
you cried. But I had an audience experience in the cinema, and there were tears abound. There was, similarly with the new Spider-Man.
Yeah.
There's all of that. So I'm all right with adaptation,
Yeah.
because it has to be a different universe. So this Moon Knight, I'm all right with, and I'll probably go now. Same with Pete and Barbara, and I'll probably read the newer version. I'll probably read the Mr. Knight from this. I'll springboard from this into that. So
Yeah. I mean,
I'm good with that. I'm not sure how you guys feel.
Yeah, I think people, when they're complaining that it's not word for word, or like, oh shit, it's a brunette instead of a blonde, I think it's because people have like a nostalgia attached to when they first, found the material, and it's difficult to let that go, or like be open to a new version. But I read the comics when I was super young, not Moon Knight, but comics in general, right? I got into comics when I was in elementary school. So for me, it's just been a really fun, it's almost like Easter eggs, like, oh, that was in the comics. That's a nod to something that happened, and I enjoy the retelling. And I do think Marvel has been striking a really good balance between like sort of honoring the source material, but adapting it so it's, it's addressing more issues, it's more entertaining. So I'm really pleased. I actually said to Pete after the second episode, like, oh my gosh, there's so much that happened in these two episodes, right? It's not, there's no like downtime in the show. And then I followed that up with like, oh, but there's only going to be 6 episodes. And Pete said, well, essentially that's 2 feature-length movies. So
that's right. Yeah. I mean, Pete, are you feeling the same?
I am. I'm loving it. I think that it's going great. I'm in for the ride, and I think that it's, let's see, just there's been a lot of stuff said that I was thinking about here. One, somebody mentioned that like crossover and introducing other Marvel characters, and I do kind of hope that they don't with this one, because I think they're really giving Moon Knight a chance to be Moon Knight and be its own thing. But it would be awesome if then in like future iterations we get, I don't know, I might be wrong here, but in the current Moon Knight run there is the superhero psychologist, and I do think that would be an interesting offshoot, right? Is that they have to bring in a psychiatrist or psychologist to help with all of the remnants of the X-Men. So like, or not X-Men, sorry, Avengers. I mean, like, like we should get Wanda into therapy. Right?
It's already happened though. It's not therapy though. In Falcon Winter Soldier, we had what essentially was a marriage counselor, if you remember.
Yeah, true.
Was that a counselor as well? The therapist?
It was a counselor, yeah.
Was,
yeah.
Gosh, I'd forgotten about that. Maybe because I really didn't like any of those scenes.
Oh, okay, yeah. I guess you didn't. I loved her as a character, so yeah. But yeah,
I think the thing is with what you're saying about looking on social media and whatever. There is a very passionate fan base out there, and you'll always get this sort of discourse around these franchise type shows with people in agreement or people in disagreement and different ideas and different things. I mean, personally, I'm not as connected to Marvel as I am, say, Star Wars or Star Trek, from when I was a kid. So I'm with the MCU and whatever. I'm kind of more sort of just open to what they're doing, and I like the fact that they put Easter eggs in there and they address that, and pay homages and whatever. But likewise, I like the fact that it's kind of doing its own thing as well, and in some ways, I think it's being fairly well managed from a creative standpoint, if you like, about telling those different stories. So, but anybody watching this or listening to this, if you do strongly disagree, then I encourage you, please. That makes for interesting, friendly but interesting debate. So please, get in touch with us, and if you want to have your say, get involved in the comments down below and whatever, and be happy to sort of dig into that rather than it being just, as you said, gushing, Graham, about everything weekly. But unless you've got anything else to add, guys, I think we should start sort of. We are nearly the length of an episode coming up here, so.
I do think it's good, Keith, that you don't know the Marvel universe so much, because then you have like a more objective reception to the material. So I've actually been wondering, right, if the two episodes have been kind of disjointed, or I can try to step back and think like, well, if I didn't know the comics, would I understand what the heck was going on? So if you're still enjoying it, then I think,
Well, yeah, on that note, I think I would have actually benefited if they had dropped episode 1 and 2 together, like they do with some shows on streaming, and actually have that as kind of almost like a feature length 2-part thing dropped in one go, because I am playing catch up and I'm kind of with it now. But episode 1 I did leave me a little bit indifferent, if I'm honest. So yeah, interesting. It is interesting. The distribution models always fascinate me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I'm surprised, Keith, that you have brought up, because you were so geeked out by the Batman doing it, but having the weapon here. So you had the Batarang here, and now Moon Knight, the Mark Spector is taking out his weapon. I thought immediately of you, by the way.
I'm glad. I hadn't made that connection. I like that. Thank you. Yes, that is very true, because you're absolutely right. I did like the fact that, in the Batman, not a major spoiler, minor spoiler here, but because things are stripped back, rather than actually being a Bat logo as such, is actually the Batarang, because it hasn't been machined into this little fold-out gadget yet, because it's early days. And but I hadn't made the connection with Moon Knight at all. But now you say that, that's awesome, because he's got the sort of double clave things, literally half moons, aren't they?
They're from the comics. He did have a utility built in the 1970s and 80s, a la Batman as well. That. But up here I went, wow, that's really cool. And I expected you to be up geeking out, because we watched the Batman together. It's one of the first things you said as we were walking through the streets of London about the Batarang. I was thinking maybe you're now going to get a t-shirt or a top that actually has the Batarang here, and then that's Keith's Christmas present lined up right there.
No, I like
it. Yours will just be a bowl of soup.
Bowl of lentil soup.
Lentil soup, yes.
I'm in the soup. Here it is.
Don't know wife would say that.
Mummy wrappings popping from.
Pete, how can people get in touch if they want to find?
Excellent. Please. So if you're watching this, you're on the Home Media Minefield YouTube channel. If you're listening to it, you found the Let's See What's Out There podcast. If you're not doing one of those, go check out the other one. Also, you can email lswotcast@gmail.com to reach out to us. You can find me on Twitter at Too Many E's, TOOMANYEES. Keith, where can people find more about you and your work?
Yeah, sure. Other than this channel, if you go over to British Isles, that's EYLES on YouTube, as in my last name, you can find some short films that I've written, produced, directed, etc. on there. Also, be sure to check out our other shows. We've got shows that cover Star Trek properties, and we've got shows that cover Star Wars properties, both on Let's See What's Out There. So check those out indeed. So guys,
one more plug.
Oh yes, sorry, I didn't give
It's
you
okay. I will have a podcast premiering soon called Flower Stories, and we're on Twitter at flowerstories.org, Instagram, and we'll be on all the podcasting channels.
All right, so please check that out also. Graham, have you got anything you want to promote?
Not today, thank you. apart from my new T-shirt, my Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yes. My in Japanese. I've been looking for it for quite a while now, and I was lucky enough to be in a store here in sunny North Wales, no less. I spotted it and grabbed it and didn't care for the price, and it ended up being a bargain. So there you go, a plug for whomever did this. Thank you.
There you go. And I'm sure we'll be talking more about Spider-Verse as this year goes on, Graham.
Yes, we will.
Indeed.
Great.
All right. Well, that just leaves me to thank everyone, my guests, and also you guys out there for watching. As I said, please comment, etc. down below, and we'll see you at the next Home Media Minefield Presents.
Let's see what's out there.
Yay. Bye for now.